So, welcome to a very special episode for women in engineering and construction. Can I just start by getting you all to introduce yourselves and then we'll get into the questions?
Definitely, yeah. So I'm Maddy Lawrence. I'm head of sales for the DALA Group.
Lovely.
I'm Davinia Potterton. I'm Chartered Building Surveyor, Technical Lead for DALA Surveys.
And I'm Charlotte Howlings, and I'm delivery manager for DALA.
Lovely. So, what does your day job look like? What's day to day, typical day for you? What does your role involve? Maybe should we start with you?
Yeah, so I'm sort of the start of the food chain, really, I guess. So I'm head of sales. My role is mainly communicating with clients, being involved from the very start of their journey with us, from their initial inquiry through to the reports that we and surveys that we do, right the way through to completion, following up, making sure that they're happy with our services, if there's anything else that they require from us. So it's really engaging with all clients on a day-to-day basis. As well as that, sort of get involved with the operational side. So I've been quite key in setting up our new systems as we're a new business, so the CRM system, and also I'm quite involved in the marketing side as well, LinkedIn, YouTube, and the website. So yeah,
Excited.
yeah.
So,
Well,
you do.
my day is, I'm obviously technical lead, so my day, I'd be basically inside of a building. So I might be on site, they might open the building up, and I'm looking at everything from the opening, the front elevation, right through to how it goes through to the internal wall. And then I could be talking to like the design lead on site, discussing how they're going to remediate, what they're going to do to their building, what plans they have, and making sure they meet expectations and everything is correct. And then be in the office, I could be looking through planning documents, looking through Google Earth, looking at Street View, getting a good idea of the building and its history, when it was built, and then understanding, how, hopefully getting a good understanding of how things are put together, because most times out of 10 we don't have any drawings or anything from the client. They don't have any information. So I'm a bit of a Sherlock Holmes at work. So I have to really start investigating these buildings and trying to draw information from anywhere I can. So I could be doing that all day, and then I'm looking at the files and looking at the consultant's photographic evidence, video evidence of what he's looked at on site, and then making sure it goes into the document, and I'm just checking it before it goes to the fire engineers. So my days quite could be anything.
Very varied.
It's very varied, and that's what's great.
Yeah.
Really great.
And Charlotte?
So I'm a delivery manager, and what happens is we will have a client that will come to us who's got a building, needs some help, maybe to understand the legislation, whether they're entitled to any grant funding from the BSF, Cladding Safety Scheme. My first job is to look at all the documents, review their files, see what their situation is, and then I will start to look at what route they can take that's going to be the best for them. So my background is property management and applicants rep for government funding. So that's my first port of call. Once we've got an instruction and we know the best route to deliver that property or that building, we then work together, myself, the project team, the client, and my job is to make sure that process is seamless, make sure we are meeting the milestones, the KPIs, everyone's working together, we've got all the documentation that we need, and I'm just checking on sort of the reporting, statistics, just making sure that project runs smoothly, and if there are any blockers, obstacles, I'll be the one to help sort it out, basically.
Yeah, that sounds great. And obviously, we're here to talk about women in the industry. Have you seen attitudes change towards women in the last few years, or do you still think there's a little bit of bias that, certainly like when Davinia, when you're going out on site and everything, do you find that that's a problem at all for you?
I don't anymore. I think there's so much been put in place that you don't feel like the female on site. I mean, I've been going to building sites since 2008 when I started off as a trainee building surveyor, and I do think, I mean, there are some really funny stories I could tell you, but I do think things have really evolved, and I think women are far more respected on site. I think it's because men see far more women in these roles, like architects, surveyors. It's more common, building control officers, and also they've had to get used to it. It's not like the old school where, oh my goodness, there's a woman on site. It's not like that anymore. It has really changed. So I feel confident and safe when I go to a building site. I know that they have to respect you and they have to treat you with respect. And generally, my my experiences are really positive in the last, I'd say in the last probably 6 to 8 years, it's been much more positive experience. I wouldn't say I've had anything really bad happen, but things that I might have thought, that's a bit like not right. I don't have those things happening anymore. So
It's definitely starting to change, I think.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, property management is or used to be very male dominated, but you're certainly seeing more women now, in higher C-suite level roles and everything. But Maddy, have you found yourself, when you've maybe been like the only woman in the room, how have you managed that? And
I think it's quite common, really. I think quite common, well, it used to be, definitely. And it's just sort of making people realise that actually you do know what you're talking about. You are educated in what field you're in, confident as well with what you've got to say, and it's important that people listen to you. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. You need that respect, I think, is really important.
That's the right word there, I think. Respect, isn't it? Completely across anybody that man, woman, or whatever you identify, as in that respect. It's just about respect, isn't it?
Definitely. And the minute people have that respect, they will treat you completely differently. They'll listen, because at the end of the day, we're just there to help them. So it's important with what we've got to say. It's valuable. So, yeah.
And Charlotte, obviously, with what you do you think women bring a slightly different perspective? Certainly with the delivery manager role, is there things that you might see that not that a man wouldn't see, but do you think it brings a different perspective or skill set? Being a woman.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, both men and women, we've all got different skill sets, perspectives. We can all bring something different to the table. So I think it's definitely, it's good to have an input from both men and women, and especially, going back looking at my property management days and things, were a bit different then, and we could maybe, speaking to residents, and we maybe would have more time and communication with residents, and I think that can always help in this role, whereas men maybe would be more practical and more technical. And I think when you're dealing with people ultimately and their homes, you need to have them to be able to trust you in terms of what you're saying, the technical side of things. They know what they're talking about, but then you're listening to them. We can maybe be more empathetic, and so I think it is really key to bring all of those skill sets together. And I think definitely, as we said, there's a lot more respect now, I think, for women in the room, which is wonderful. And I think that will continue. So, yeah, absolutely. I think we've both got skills to bring.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, have any of you ever felt like you've got to work that little bit harder to be taken as seriously as a man? Have you ever experienced any of that?
Yeah, I think so. Certain situations with previous clients that we've dealt with can be quite difficult sometimes when you've got clients that maybe are a little bit more traditional and closed-minded and would prefer to speak to a man who's well qualified, I guess. And whereas myself and Dab in a previous company, I remember we sat down on a Teams call together, and that was quite interesting because it was sort of old school man, I guess, if you like, who was not expecting two women on the call. And I can't believe that we sort of said, no, we are trying to help you. This is the route we're sort of trying to go down. We are really there to help. Dab's got a fantastic wealth of knowledge. And it was sort of getting him to take us seriously, really.
Right.
And I do think we achieved that by the end of the phone call, but it was that fact that you feel like you're sort of having to prove yourself, really, when actually you shouldn't. You should just be able to do your job and have a good conversation and help.
Yeah, yeah. I know somebody, I won't name names, but I know somebody who changed their name on a CV to see if they would get through. So they applied pretty much exactly the same way with their name as their name
Yeah,
and their name as a male version of that name, and the male got through.
interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty much exactly the same application, same wording,
Yeah.
same qualifications,
Wow.
everything. But she technically didn't get through. But
Yeah.
her now alter ego did, and she called them out on it. So fair play to her for doing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
But if you had any sort of mentors along the way that are, male or female, that have kind of helped you to not necessarily get where you are, but to be, confident in what you do and give you that push to be like, you know what you're doing. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter that, there might be people out there that you just explained that don't take you seriously. But if you had anyone sort of had your back and just said, come on, we know that you can do this.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think definitely Dorian and Ant have been fundamental in all of our journeys, really,
Yeah.
which has been fantastic, and they've really sort of believed in us, even from the previous business that we worked at to now, and with the DALA Group, it's been fantastic to have that encouragement and support, and that drive really to sort of push us, but in a nice way, to encourage us to work hard and work as a team and be fundamental in the business. I think their encouragement has been huge, and actually not just them, the other directors and the other staff in the business, the men, they have been always there to help, just very positive influences, and I think that's really key, and has been, particularly in my journey, has been quite important, really. So yeah.
what about either of you? Anybody that's
I've,
along the way?
I've had really excellent, in my career, I've had both equally excellent male and female people that I've worked with that have encouraged me, developed me. I'm still, even though I'm no longer with those companies, I'm still really good friends with some of those people. The people that got me through my chartership, were both male and female, and they were absolutely brilliant. I've definitely been really lucky. Currently, the guy I work with, James Roll, he is so much respect for me, and I absolutely love that. He doesn't put me on a pedestal, but I feel like he does with my knowledge. He totally, has, believes in me. And then also the fire engineers, even though they're in a different field line, even though I'm aligned with them, but I don't have the similar qualifications, they equally respect me, ask my advice, what I think, and it goes both ways as well. And that is really, that's such key to a business, that you have this mutual respect and you work together really well. And I think that's what makes businesses really, really strong, when you have that in the workplace.
Yeah, it's nice to see. Sorry to interrupt you. It's nice to see that there are plenty of male allies out there as well who
Definitely.
want to see us succeed, and hopefully the old school people that you
Yeah.
mentioned are few and far between these days. Yeah,
They're under the
Yeah.
carpet.
yeah.
I think it's that support network that's so key, and that when you work as a team, it's incredible the things that you can achieve. I know that I could go into that office this afternoon, ask anyone a question, and they'd take time out of their day, they'd help. and they want to help, they want to get involved, which is nice.
Yeah, it's really lovely.
Yeah, nothing's too much.
Exactly.
Because we all want to achieve the best and
it.
be the best.
Yeah.
So why give a half-hearted response? Give people the time and give them the right information.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, is there anything in the industry that you think that we do really well and that maybe isn't celebrated enough?
I think probably since Grenfell, things have been so fast paced in terms of legislation and everything has changed so fast, and we've had to adapt very quick. Not just us as professionals, but also leaseholders, RTMs, freeholders, anyone with a building basically. So I think with all these changes, we have adapted very quickly, and I think we've made the best of Grenfell's such a tragedy, and now we're trying to say, right, okay, we're going to not have this happen again. This is what we're going to implement. This is what we're going to do. It's been really confusing times, not just in legislation, but also who's funding this. And before the government funding come along, which I think is wonderful, there was a lot of stress, a lot of leaseholders, how am I going to pay for this? And people scrambling reserve funds and ripping off cladding, should we take this off, should we not? And so much. So I think really we've all done pretty well to where we are now. There's a long way to go, definitely, but there's improvements, and I think, it's all about being able to adapt and change and know your rules and understanding of everything.
Yeah, it is nice to see things are starting to. It is getting better, as you say, and things are starting to level out a little bit, and there is still a long way to go. But I mean, I remember the year, probably the 12 months after Grenfell happened, and every event or conference, excuse me, that I went to, things had changed. So they told us something in the March, and then in May it completely changed again. And it was, as a property manager, you're trying to keep up, you're trying to communicate that to your clients, and especially those who were in the higher risk buildings. It must have been absolutely horrendous just to live there and be able to sleep at night and think, are we next?
It's terrifying, isn't it? And I think that's what industry as a whole perhaps needs to sort of come back to. I mean, I have many conversations with people trying to haggle on prices of surveys and things, and I get it that it's not an open-ended budget, but at the end of the day, it's people's lives and people's safety. And if I was living in a tower block covered in cladding that isn't safe, seeing Grenfell, it's absolutely terrifying. So it's really important that we focus on the main issue of keeping people safe.
Yeah. I mean, Maddy, what skills do you think will be the most important for the next generation of women who are coming up into our industry? What skills do you think are the most important?
So I think one, to answer in terms of the industry, but also in life in general, which is fundamental, is communication. I think it is incredibly valuable to communicate properly. Daily I do it within my job, within the team, within dealing with clients, subcontractors. It's fundamental to pick up the phone and have a conversation. And I think that has been lost a little bit potentially with social media and the way the world's sort of going, I guess, with WhatsApp and messaging, emailing. I think it's so important to communicate because then you can educate, you can help people, you can support people. It's just a fundamental life skill, I think, that is sort of being lost, and it's important that people coming into the industry, whether they're older or younger, to communicate properly.
Yeah, definitely. I think we need to find a balance, because I think certainly with people that I've spoken to, with like property managers, etc., you have a fear that if you pick up the phone and tell somebody something, your word's going to be misinterpreted, or they may get the wrong end of the stick, or they might not hear you properly, or especially, and I mean no disrespect to the elderly, obviously, but if there's hearing problems or anything like that. I mean, I remember years ago she's passed away now, but she was always my favourite resident. She was so lovely. She was 90 when I met her. But, you know, she didn't do email. She couldn't hear you on the phone. She didn't really understand if you sent her a Section 20 or something like that, or if you sent her, you know, the paperwork that you have to send for legislation. She didn't really understand it, so she would always invite me around for a cup of tea. And I had to go round and speak to her about it, whether it was about her service charge or about the flowers that she wanted planted in the garden. So it's trying to, in some ways, bring that back. And I'm not saying that every property manager is going to have time for that. But finding that balance between the big pack of paperwork that you've got to send out because you have to. But maybe that needs to be sent with a covering letter rather than just the pack.
Definitely.
You know, and try and explain it and just put on that letter, you know, if you have any questions, please give me a call, or and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think it's that balance between what we have to do and what we have to send out because we want people to understand it, and it's very clear, it's very black and white, to that empathetic thing that I said earlier.
Humanising it, isn't it? And we are dealing with people and their homes and their lives, and it's huge. And then I think we have become just, you know, too busy and rush, and like you say, if you just get an invoice come through and if you're not up to date on legislation, you don't use the internet, it can be really worrying. And I know too well about what you said. You have your, you know, your older residents, bless them, and you want to be able to sit and have that time with them, and because they will worry. And you'd be like, oh my goodness, you know, like, I'll explain it to you, and you can take that away from them. And so I think that's a huge part of it. And yeah, conversation can just change everything, can't it?
And the communication as well with the resident, that is just so important, that it's nice and clear, because now with legislation it is quite complicated, some of the wording in there. It doesn't need to be portrayed as complicated when you're communicating with the residents. It's nice to be able to talk about it in sort of a calm setting, to try and keep things as calm as possible, but also to make sure they clearly understand it, and not confused by it or panicked by it. It's really key.
Because the last thing you want is for the property manager to have to send out a service charge levy or demand or bill or whatever, and they go, well, I didn't understand your first letter, and I certainly don't understand why I've got a £10,000 bill. So yeah, it's really, really difficult. But I mean, if you were, what would you say to a young girl, you know, sitting in school today about, you know, interested in either property management or engineering, construction, surveying, any of that stuff? They weren't really sure if it was right. What would you say, Davinia? Maybe that's a good one for you.
I would say it's the most diverse job. Usually no day is the same. If you want to go into a role or an industry where you're constantly being challenged, your mind's constantly turning, and it's a constant learning development industry. You don't just go in, you know, I know what I'm doing, that's it. You have to relearn legislation, law. The wheel is constantly revolving.
It's never a boring day,
It's
is
never
it?
boring. And it's so interesting because, you know, you could be out anywhere in the country. You know, last week I was in Saltdean in Brighton. I was on top of a building. It's right near Saltdean Lido, and the building backs onto an old Butlins site. The building's beautiful. It's like Art Deco, and it's been converted to flats, and then all the land behind was built on. So we're remediating some of the buildings to the rear. And I'm up a scaffolding, and I can just see, you know, the sea. It was a lovely day, and you know, I'm with my clients, walk around the building, and it was just gorgeous. And I was like, you know, obviously, if it was raining, I'd be like, yeah. But it was like, I was thinking, this is my job. Like, I get to go to these places, I get to go up the scaffolding, I get to see what's going on, I get to talk to all sorts of different types of people. There's people doing their jobs, there's like the scaffolders, there's the people removing the cladding, there's, the sort of boss on site. I get to speak to all of them, and it is great. It is, it's a brilliant job, and also, for me, once you get your chartership, you're never without a job. It's your golden ticket. It is like you will always have a job. There's always a role for you somewhere. So it's great to be, I worked in retail when I was studying, and I was working in retail in the early 90s, and you can see what is happening. People had a career. My bosses that was their career, and you can see what's happening to, like,
High
retail,
street, yeah.
the high street, and you think, that must be such a scary environment to work in. So working in an environment where it's constantly evolving, challenging, moving forward, developing, what could be better?
Yeah, I think it's so important as well to do something you enjoy. We spend most of our lives at work.
So we do.
So it's important to enjoy it and work with great people, and whether that's teams or clients. It's fundamental, I think, really to enjoy what you do, and it's important because life's too short to not enjoy it. So I think definitely to the younger generation to choose something to enjoy, and
It'd be nice if what we do collectively as well, from a school's perspective, they have these career days and that sort of thing, but you never see, go and be a property manager, go and work in leasehold, because people don't know. First of all, they don't know what leasehold is, and and all of that kind of stuff. Obviously it's in the press a lot now, but not in the best light, which is a shame, because actually it's, as you said, it's a really interesting industry to be in. So
and it's rewarding as
It is
well.
rewarding. It's so rewarding.
It's phenomenal. It's very rewarding.
Yeah. So what's one piece of advice that's maybe stayed with you throughout your career, Charlotte? Maybe we can start with you.
Oh, wow. I think that there's so many things. I think really when you're faced with some real problems, whether that's just technical or maybe issues with sort of breakdown for a relationship with your client, just keep going. Because sometimes we do have disasters as property managers, or things happen on site, and it can seem like the end of the world, but it is just collaborate, work together, and it is such a teamwork effort in this industry, because you can't do anything on your own really. And when you have your tough times, pull together, keep going, and you will work it out. You will work it out, and it is just working together. I think definitely collaboration in any of these projects, just everything.
Yeah, that's good. What about you?
I think, especially in surveying, you when you're doing a project, you can make mistakes. Mistakes can be made. You might not measure something correctly. You might not have written something into the tender, and that's like you've got to tell a client they need more money. It can be any simple thing, something you've misjudged, with the layout, and it doesn't work from a fire perspective, and I always say to anybody that I'm, training or working with, if you make a mistake, that's, we get round it, but you always have to learn from your mistakes. So that next project, that is one of the things that you look at, you make sure, double check. And like, if you learn like that, you cannot, penalise people for making mistakes, because that is a learning process, and
It's
I
human
think
nature. We all do,
you
don't we?
develop through your mistakes. And when I was starting out, I remember the lady who was training me. She did I think she did an extension. She got the plans, and the plans were hand drawn plans, and she did everything to those plans. But the plans were in feet and inches, and obviously we're all like meters, and so it was done, like, it was done completely wrong. And she had to, like, you know, she, and I never forget her telling me that. And I was like, oh my God.
I bet she never
Like,
did it again.
Yeah.
she never
You
did it
know?
again. But when she told me that as
Yeah.
well, I didn't do it either because it was such a huge, like,
Yeah.
at the moment, like, I've got to deal with this. I've got to, like, move this forward. I've got to, like, get it right. So, yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Maddy?
I think to really listen to people is really key and important to reiterate that and listen to your team because their skills and knowledge is incredible, but also really listen to the client. What is it that they actually need? What are the problems that they're particularly having? And let's get a solution in place. Let's really listen and find out. Not just giving them surveys because they need a survey and
Not a tick box exercise, is
exactly,
it?
and
Yeah.
it's not an open-ended budget, so money's limited, service charges are limited, and finding out exactly what they need, making sure that that's done, and picking up the phone, giving them that advice if they need it, it is so important. And feeling listened to is fantastic. You know, if you feel you've been heard,
Yeah.
I think that's half the problem
Absolutely.
sometimes. So yeah, it's very important.
Yeah. And if our listeners could take away one message from today's conversation about women in our industry as a collective, what would that message be? Do you want to start?
Oh God, I think
Put you on the
it's
spot.
hard to. Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah.
If our listeners could take away one message
Yeah.
about women in engineering or women in construction or women in property management.
Yeah.
What do you think that message
I think
might be?
don't be afraid to get involved and get stuck in, and you never know what sort of path you'll take. I mean, Charlotte, you've come from being a property manager. I've come from a completely different background. My background's in textile design and interior design,
Okay.
and I think there's so many things with building surveying, working as part of sales. Just get involved and get stuck in. And, it's incredible the changes that we can make to residents' lives, but also to the sector as an industry. So,
Yeah. What about you?
Don't You're going to start off small in this industry. You're going to start off as a little mustard seed in your start out. The tasks you're going to be doing are going to be, simple and small. But then you're going to grow. You're going to start to evolve, and then like all your little branches are going to start, and you're going to go in different like directions, and you will. I think surveying's a slow process. You've got a lot
lot
to
to
learn.
learn.
It's a massive subject. People sort of say to me, what is a building surveyor? And the only thing I can say to them is, well, when you buy a house, you need a surveyor. A surveyor comes round, they tell you if the house is like it's going to fall down, or is there major problems with it? Is it worth the money? That is, and they're like, is that what you do? No, I don't do anything to do with that. I do another type of surveying. So it's so vast that you're going to start off small, you're going to keep growing, and then you might branch off to a certain area. I did general practice surveying when I started out. So I was doing like, building extensions and, I worked in the education environment, and I did like libraries and for a local authority, and it was amazing. And when I came into this industry, I had a lot to learn, but I loved it. I sort of found my niche, and I've gone into more of a niche environment. But it's been brilliant, and my skills have developed, so much as I've started. I did the EWS1 training, and it's been brilliant. So yeah, you always it's a slow journey, but you got to keep to it. You got to stick to it, and the rewards are amazing.
Yeah, I think what you said about the branches is quite nice because also if you go off in one direction and it's not quite for you, there's there's another one that you
there's
can
loads,
follow. There's
loads.
so many, isn't
Yeah.
there? You don't really realise. But what about you, Charlotte?
Well, I think, as you say, there is just so many opportunities, and one opportunity can then branch off from another. I think it's a really great, rewarding career to be in. And if there is something that you're interested in and you're purely holding back because you are female, I would encourage them not to, because there are so many different areas to work in. And like Dava said, you start off maybe small, and then you'll kind of find your area, and then you'll grow. So I think I wouldn't want any female to hold back, whether that's going to be, I want to be a site manager, I want to work up a scaffold, or I want to be in, the government funding or ripping cladding off a building. I think we're all capable of learning those skills and doing it. And if that's what's going to make you happy, like Maddy said, you've got to be happy in your job.
Yeah.
Then go for it.
And have that confidence to do
have
it
that
as
confidence
well.
as a woman.
Yeah.
Go and do that.
Yeah, I've certainly, from my perspective, over the years, I've had things said to me which has knocked my confidence, and having the resilience then to build yourself back up and think, no, do you know what? I do know what I'm talking about. I do know what, I've learned all of this. I've got the qualifications, and I'm not going to let anybody put me down.
Yeah,
And don't let anyone take your shine away.
definitely.
Really.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your time.
Thank you so much.
you.